Yeah, I'm excited to dig into the GitHub Copilot. I've been playing with it last night a little bit. I don't know if anybody has taken a little bit of time to check it out, but there's a lot of awesome things going on with it, and it's kind of breaking Twitter right now. So I'd love to hear what kind of things do you want to see me kind of play around with the GitHub Copilot. I'll be kind of just playing around, no particular agenda. So let me know what you want to see. So GitHub Copilot. What is it? Copilot.github.com. So it's currently in a technical preview. It looks like I'm signed out here, but I do have access to it. And it's pretty cool. I don't actually see this when I'm doing it. I wonder if that's just a web UI thing, the little Copilot tab. That'd be cool. But yeah, I guess it's powered by OpenAI, which is pretty awesome. Yo, what's up? Good, good. How about yourself? Hope you're having a good day. But yeah, it's I've only played with it with JavaScript so far, and it's been pretty amazing. And I was able to completely write an Applitools visual regression test, which was amazing. So I'll keep playing around with those kind of things. And again, let me see in the comments if there's something particular. Yes, it does work with React.js. So we'll definitely dive into React. As I'm definitely into React myself, and I was already playing with that a little bit, but we'll definitely see what that looks like when we dive in. So we probably can just dive in right in then, right? So let's just kind of start from the top. I'm gonna create a new project. So C code, make dir Copilot test. How about that? All right. So inside of my Copilot test, I'm just going to start off by creating a test or app.js. How about that? So I think the cool thing about Copilot is there's kind of multiple ways. Oh, I totally ASM. Interesting. Totally messed that up. Okay, we're on JavaScript now. Make sure that we're in the right language mode. And we are. Cool. So the interesting thing is like there's multiple ways where you're able to kind of take advantage of the GitHub Copilot. I'm sure people have seen some of the previews and stuff, but it's interesting how it works both from comments and it also works by kind of parsing the function name for what you're actually trying to do. And I'm not 100% sure of the different sources that it pulls from, but it's kind of AI based. And I know it at least pulls some from Stack Overflow, so it's kind of interesting. But I think where I've seen it interesting the most is kind of like utility functions that I would write project to project. So let's start with an example for that. So if you're kind of working through, maybe you might want to sort an array of objects by a key, right? So let's say sorts an array of objects by key and returns a new array. So if we do that, well, this one's not giving us a good one yet, but I'm going to hit Control Enter, which is going to synthesize solutions. And what typically happens is if you're doing it in line, which we saw there, it will kind of give you the first one that it immediately kind of comes up with. But if we see here in this Copilot tab, and let me just get rid of the bookmark bar so we can see this a little bit better, but we have a bunch of solutions that are pulled for us automatically that we can actually plop right in there. So if I want to sort by a key, like a good one to do that looks like it's this sort by key. And again, because this is pulling from kind of a variety of sources, like for example, this might be pulling from Stack Overflow. I don't actually have the ability to see where it's pulling from, but you have to always kind of take it with a grain of salt and make sure that it's actually working for your use case. So let's see if this one actually works. I'm going to accept this solution. And of course, I don't need all the rest of this other stuff, which is interesting that it pulled all that in for me. But let's see if it actually works. So I'm going to pull up my terminal. And how about, let's create a new array. I'm going to use the final space API because that will be easier to pull up some data. Here we go. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But let's pull up some examples and see what this is actually going to give me. It's been a while since I hit this. Okay, final space API. I think it's going to be, yeah, character. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of this data as JSON and let's add it to a separate mock file. Format it just so it looks nice. We have all this data. It's all the characters from the Final Space TV show. If you haven't watched it before, you probably should. But let's call this characters.json. All right, and let's import our characters from characters.json. And let's see what happens if we run this. I think we need to console log it. So sort by. See, did you see that? So even it was able to even run it automatically on the code that I was trying to. Yo, what's up, Tech Gadget? How's it going? But if we can see, so let's see what I just did there again. So if I start typing the sort by key, it's automatically going to pass in this characters. And it's even finding that the name, I don't know if this is just because name is a common key to sort by, but it's automatically pulling all this stuff. And I can even, when I was starting to write the console log out, it was doing the same. So we have the sort by key with the characters. It's pulling the function name. It's even adding that import that I just added, and it's doing it by name. So let's see what happens when I actually run this. No. Okay. So I guess I can't import it, but constant, man, I still don't completely know when I can and cannot use import versus require. Does this work on TypeScript? I would assume so. I'm pretty sure that this works on really like any language. That's my understanding. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's what it said on the page. I'm just mostly familiar with JavaScript, sans TypeScript right now. So if you give me an example, I'd be happy. He has shown it with TS. Okay. So I would be surprised if it didn't, because I think it's pretty flexible in the different languages that it works with. But yeah, I don't know what a good example of that would be. My camera and mic seem out of sync. So the way that I'm doing this is I have it going from my computer through Zoom, where I'm recording my screen with OBS, and that's just kind of, unfortunately, that's kind of my setup right now. I don't know for better or for worse, but eventually I'd like to figure out how to do that properly to make sure that I'm routing everything okay. But now that I have my office and I'm starting to set things up, I can finally like focus on doing something, since I'll be here for a while. Because before I was always in an apartment and I didn't want to spend a bunch of time trying to fix something where I would have to do it something differently anyways. But yeah, so sorry if it's a little bit out of sync. Hopefully it's not making it too hard to watch, but let me know if it doesn't. If it is, and I can try to tweak, see if I can figure it out a little bit. But for now, okay, we have this, and let's see if this require statement actually works. Hopefully this works this time. Yeah, okay. So we can even see at the bottom here, there's gonna be 47. Let's splice this so that it's only giving us like the first 5, because that will be too long. Splice is the right one, right? Or is it slice? We will see in a second. Yeah, okay. Cool. So look at this. So before, if we were looking at it by the ID, but wait, yeah. If we were looking at it by the ID, we would be seeing Gary up at the top because the letter G. But so what I'm doing is I'm only taking the first 5 entries of this characters array, which avocado happens to be the first name, where then it's Gary. And you can even see the IDs. These IDs aren't in order for the actual characters that are having in there. But then we have Little Kato, and we have Mooncake, and we have Quinn all the way at the end. Awesome. Glad to hear that the code actually looks good, though. That's probably the more important part, rather than me just kind of rambling around. Have I tried this against something like tab 9? I don't know what tab 9 is. So yeah, I would say no, because I haven't heard of it before. But okay, let's try another example. So like I was saying, the cool thing is not only this whole snippet was able to generate from my comment, right? But say, just for example, if I didn't want to type that comment out first, I could do the same thing, but I can use that function name first. So if I write something like function, interesting, look at that, get random character. I want to actually see what this looks like. That's pretty funny. I did nothing. Let's see what it does. Did it not work? Oh, it's duh. I didn't actually run it. That would be helpful. But yeah, it worked. It gave me a random character. That's pretty amazing. It's another AI code completion. I saw somebody also talking about one called Kite, which sounds like it's but yeah, I think you meant like the VS Code edit, like the the resolution looks good or something, right? So cool. I'm glad that that looks good. But yeah, someone was also saying like Kite is similar to this GitHub Copilot. So it's interesting. I don't really know anything. This is the first time, honestly, that I've been really playing around with like a lot of this autocomplete and tab completion stuff. So for me, it's a bit mind blowing. I know there definitely are solutions out there, but it's been fun. All right, so I'm going to just send out a quick. Oh man. Okay, I'm going to send out a quick tweet just to try to let people know that I'm streaming. I'm using my. Oh, I can actually show this. So I am using this Twitch dashboard that I created to actually send out tweets. Because what I'm able to do is I'm able to log in with my Twitter, and this is open for anybody to log in and use it with. But what I do is I search for my, get rid of this to make sure I see chat. I search for whatever the stream is that I'm on, whether it's mine or somebody else's that I want to talk about. But you pull up the stream and it shows it on the dashboard. And then I can put out whatever message I want in. And because I'm logged into my Twitter, I can post it. Now I'm going to show my VS Code so that it actually shows what I'm trying to talk about here. But let's do a nice one. And I'm going to just do a nice quick screenshot here. And you'll see this come up on Twitter in a second if you're following me at Colby Fayok. Playing with Copilot. I'm really boring tweeting right now, I would imagine. Okay, let's try this one more time just so that I can actually smile rather than looking up at the thing. Nope, that didn't work, but it's okay. There we go. Okay, so I just sent out that tweet. I think it's working. Okay. Anyways, okay, so we're back to the actual topic here, where so this was awesome, right? Like I didn't even start doing anything with this. It just automatically started doing this get random character function. Let's try that again and see. So function. So the cool thing is if I press, what is it, option and the bracket key, or no, option. Yeah, okay. So option the bracket key, I guess, is only if you go to a new line. But if I hit control return, that's going to actually get the synthesized results. And it looks like a lot of them are the same. It looks like they're kind of pulling in similar things, slightly different. We can see that we have the index, we have the random index, and they're all basically doing the same thing, just slight different variations. So that's okay. I was hoping maybe it came up with another kind of fun little function to pull from, but either way, it's awesome to be able to see that without having to do anything, it just started creating this function for me, and it actually works completely. Again, I keep forgetting to console log this out, but it works completely fine. It's awesome. All right, so what I was originally trying to do though is if you actually describe your function name instead of inside of the comment, which you have both options. So if I say function sort characters by, I don't know, how about, so it says by name. Let's just do that for now, because that's, so see that it's actually hard coded because I have sort characters by name as opposed to passing in a key, which would be what I wanted to sort on. But let's try this one out. So I'm going to console log sorting this by characters. Again, it's going to give me a ton of different options or data because I'm pulling in the entire thing. But we can see Zargon's at the end, which of course, because it's a Z. I'm going to limit this data set. So all characters, const characters equals. It even gives me the option to slice it. Cool. So we're going to work off the first 10, and let's run this again and see what happens. And this time we can see we're only getting the 10 results because, and it turns out Tribor is at the very end of the first 10 results. But we have Quinn, we have Mooncake again, and we have Little Kato, and of course that's all working. But let's see what happens if we change that a little bit. Function sort characters by What do you want to try for this one? How about origin? Let's see if this one actually comes up. Okay, so it's actually still pulling it up. Let's see what happens when I run it. Console log. So that's an actual sort function as opposed to a function that returns a new array through the sort. But we can see that, let's see, by the origin, we have ventrixia, which is at the very end there. And of course, little Cato and avocado both come from ventrixia. And then unknown. So that's working great. So far, we're able to completely set up those functions for sorting without having to do anything ourselves. So does anybody have any thoughts or ideas of what you want to see next? I think React is definitely another one that I want to start playing around with, but it's working pretty amazing so far. I think it's really cool to see, even without trying to add something, it's able to come up with ideas just by kind of auto-suggesting ideas for what I can do with my characters array. So I think that's cool. So yeah, let's try go to a React example. So how about, I'm going to create a new Next.js project. Let's try that. Oh, you got an idea? Let's see. React hooks. That's a good one too. So I'm going to still keep that other project open on the side, but let's try to create a new Next.js project. All right, create next app, my next Copilot, if I spell it right. What languages, frameworks does this work? My understanding that it supports any language, and I don't know if framework specifically is part of that criteria, because I don't know this for a fact, but my understanding is that it supports any languages and it parses what it's doing to try to fit it in to what's kind of around it, and it does so based off of things like Stack Overflow and like all the code that's on GitHub. So it kind of understands that with the context that it has through all these different repositories, right? But I would be curious about a deep dive of what's actually happening in practice for how it correlates all that different data and information. But let's see, let's go into my next Copilot. All right, I'm gonna open that up. Let's get that dev server started. Okay, so we have once this loads, we have a pretty typical Next.js app, right? Fetch the weather forecast from Michigan from AccuWeather's API and obtain the largest pictures of Pixabay under keyword spaghetti. I like that. So let's try to take that step by step. I wonder, so the interesting thing is having to work with things like API keys, right? So let's see what it's actually doing, because then we can take advantage of doing that and then use it within the request in the client to actually pull that data, right? So let's see what that's actually doing. I'm going to start a little simpler than what you have at first, since that seems like a little bit complex, but maybe we can piece that together step by step, because that is interesting. All right, so I'm going to pull in, import, use effect from React. Use effect. See, and it auto completes my, it even gives me, what does it want me to do? Keep in mind, I haven't told it to do anything here yet. I don't know why it's, okay, so it's creating an image. And what's it going to do? It does nothing with the image. So it creates that image and it doesn't do anything with that image. But it's interesting that it created an image, right? So I could probably add that to the DOM, right? So what happens if I, let's give this an ID of test. Simple enough, right? Is this a start of Skynet? Absolutely is. No, but the interesting thing, speaking of see what website it builds out, I forget exactly what I was doing. I think I tried to create like a user profile widget, and it gave me somebody's code, or it was a header or a footer, and it gave me like a complete rundown of somebody's code with somebody else's name in there. It was weird because it just kind of grabs somebody's code and puts it together as a suggestion. So it's interesting to see. But let's see what happens if this actual image worked. So inside of the ID of test, what is that? I'm going to, I actually don't know how the new image API works like that. Does that actually work? I'm going to console log that out and see what happens. I haven't created a new image like that before. Yeah, okay. Oh, wait. What am I doing? Am I not? No, I'm doing that right. Oh, I wonder if this new image, that's interesting. Is the new image a hook itself? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to kill that because I'm not sure what's going on. I've never actually tried to use that image API like that. I don't even know if you can use it like that, um, which is interesting. Anyways, so go back to the original example. Let's see if we can fetch some weather data. Um, so how about function fetch weather by zip code? It's going to give me something. Oh yeah, so it is giving me results. It just took a second to load. Okay, so let's try this out and see what happens. I am going to run it. No. Okay. So temp is undefined. Oh, because I never passed in a zip code. Duh. And it looks like I also need an API key. So I've never actually used the Open Weather API. So let's actually see what that looks like. It is ridiculous, right? It's amazing. Hopefully this isn't too bad to get the get a key for. Let's see here. And at some point, I'm going to need to stop sharing so that I can get this API key safely if this actually works. But let's see here. I just showed the password on there. Okay, I'm going to go solo quick and I'm going to generate a new password because that's probably smart. Remember me. All I see is the Bender's eyes, flames coming out. Or is it his mouth that the flames are coming out? So I'm going to create this account 1 second so we can try this Open Weather API example, which should be interesting. I am over 16 years old. I agree with the privacy policy, and I do not want any of your emails. All right. Save. Okay. So let me get my API key. That was easy enough. Demo. Cool. Okay. So all I need to do is add that as my Open Weather Map API key. Hopefully this works. Save that as .env.local, which is the Next.js thing. And I will hide it so none of you can try to steal this from me. All right. So I have my API key. Let's come back into action here. All right. So I plugged in hopefully the right thing here. And I'm just going to use my old zip code for now because I don't know the zip code of where you live. So let's try 19380. I think that's it. So that's of Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is close by to where I live. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, oh yeah, I need to restart my server to pull in that environment variable. Let's refresh it. Oh, sorry. So yeah, it is in like closed beta. You can sign up on the wait list. It sounds like people are getting in very quickly. Like I saw some people who said that they signed up and they got accepted like pretty fast. So, try your luck. Sign up on I believe it's copilot.github.com and kind of see what happens. I'll paste that link really quickly in the pilot.github.com. Yeah. Here we go. So yeah, I suggest that you go there and sign up for the waitlist. Worst case is you'll have to wait a little bit, but at least you'll get notifications when it becomes publicly accessible, if not immediately. So it looks like my API key didn't properly set there. Let's see. Why is it showing undefined? Did I set it correctly? .env.local, and I did restart my server. So I'm going to go back again and turn this off so I can check, make sure that I set that up right. Huh. Oh, I think I need to make it, what is it, next public, because it's Next.js, so that it can be seen in the client. I guess if it's in the client, it's not going to matter if I show it here anyways, right? I made it a separate one so that I can delete it later, but let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to restart my server again to pull in the new variable. Fingers crossed that the API works properly. No, so that API key didn't work. I wonder if I signed up for the wrong thing. What did I sign up for? Open weather map.org. That's what I signed up for. Yeah. I wonder if I have to set up like permissions or something. Don't you hate when API keys are getting in the way of things like that? Okay, I'm going to go off just one more time just to see if I have to set up permissions on the key itself, because I really want to try and get this working. All right, so edit my key. You can generate any as for your subscription. Oh, so you might need a subscription. Early forecast, free plan. So there is a free plan, but I wonder if what I'm on isn't part of the free plan. Because what endpoint am I hitting? Yeah, I mean, it says the 2.5 weather. I'll pull it back up since I'm not showing the actual API key. But historical weather, dashboard, updated weather maps. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to purchase anything in order to do this right now. But yeah, I mean, that's the same API that I'm hitting. So it's interesting that it wasn't working. Bummer. Let me just open it up in a new tab to see if, by chance, invalid API key. Okay. Well, hooray, I turned the GitHub show stream into Colby fighting with some random API, not complaining. Yeah, right? So that's a good point. So let's just carry on and move to something else, because unfortunately we can't work with that. What's another public API that you don't need an API key for? Trying to think. Because I like that idea of trying to use some kind of API to do that. Function, let's see if it preloads anything. Fetch. Let's get a that's funny. I want to screenshot this because Kent Dodds is pulled up here and it wants to pull Kent Dodds data. Twitch dashboard. What is Kent's Twitter? Kent C Dodds. Yeah, Kent C Dodds. Pulling some Kent C Dodds data via GitHub Copilot. I think that's fair, right? All right. It's good enough. Okay, so let's actually see if this works, right? That's kind of the point of this. All right, so fetch data, and let's see what happens. Okay, so it's actually going to, yeah. I don't know if that's actually a public API. Oh, so yeah, it does. Look at this. I don't know what this data actually is. Is this just pulling his, oh, it's pulling GitHub users. Okay, so this is pulling Kent by his actual user ID and such and grabbing all of his GitHub. So I guess this is all of his repos. That's interesting. So okay, let's create a Next.js app that's pulling all of Kent's information. Shall we take a look at Axios as well? Do you mean Axios the API request library, or do you mean Axios the news the news source or something? I'd be curious as to which one you're talking about, because the nice thing about Next.js is the fetch API is well, I guess in the browser the fetch API is already there, but for Node particularly it's polyfilled, which is a beautiful thing. How about if the number of starred repos is divisible by 5, then get the latest article about Bitcoin? Okay. So if the number of starred repos, make a simple authentication, see what that pulls, the Axios API. Yeah, I'll try the authentication a little bit. I'm curious about. So the nice thing, like as we saw in that previous example, it's able to. Well, it's not there anymore. But that previous example, it was able to create that authentication. It's just the API key, and unfortunately not. So I'd be curious. I'm sure it's able to create examples where you have to pass in the API key. I'll show later with Applitools, the company that I work for. I was able to create a test where you have to just set your API key right inside the code, and it was able to work. But okay, let's try this. What is it? If the number of starred repos is divisible by 5. So how about I'm going to pull this function out, and let's say function, what is it, is divisible by 5. Look at that, automatically did that, right? So I'm going to make this an I'm going to make this an async function, and I'm going to return, I just return it, right? Or I typically do data await, so I'm just going to do it that way. Return data. All right. So I'm going to fetch that data inside of my use effect, and because I need to make it asynchronous, I'm going to make exactly what it was trying to help me do. I love this because it is literally writing the code for me as I'm trying to do this. I don't know if you all saw that, but so what I have here is a immediately invoked function. I know there's an acronym there. Yo, what's up, Nick? Welcome aboard. But okay, so let's just make sure that this part works. Yeah, okay. So we have all the data still. So let's check if it's divisible by 5. And I think that was right. If the number of starred repos. So I would imagine that every single one of Kent C. Dodd's repos are starred. So let's that make that a given. But let's check if it is divisible by 5, right? Console log is divisible by 5. And let's say is divisible. Yep. Oh, I don't want that. I want this length, right? Yeah, this length. Yeah, okay. And it looks like it happens to be because it's 30, but I wonder if that's just because the limitations of the API. I wonder if it only pulls in, yeah, because he definitely has a lot more than 30 repositories. But let's just try, how about we look at the stars of each? Okay, yeah, the number of stars of a random repo. I was thinking could even be, let's see, does it actually have the number of stars on here? Stargazers count. So let's just calculate if for every single one, if it is, for every single one of these in this list, if it is divisible by 5, we'll just console log that repo out, right? So how about, is that an array? Yeah, it's an array. Okay, so data for each repo, thank you. Look at this. If is divisible by, this is creepy because it's listening to me too, right? If it is divisible by 5 and it's grabbing that repo's stargazers count, that's so creepy. Repo name, thank you. That's really interesting. All right, and I'm also going to console log out the actual stargazers, which it's doing for me as well. I'm telling you, it's listening to me doing this, but let's see what actually happens. Cool. So these are all of Kent's repos that are divisible by 5 by the stargazer count, apparently. So that's really interesting that I was able to do that. All right. So what else? What's the next thing? Oh, sorry, Tech Gadget. Some of my favorite fun APIs are Kanye REST. I haven't seen that. Ron Swanson quotes. Ron Swanson's always good. API of Ice and Fire. Yes, no. Fun. Yeah, there's some good ones in there. Let's see. What does Kanye REST do? Oh, I did not spell it right. Kanye REST. So is it literally just return a quote? Okay, let's see if it is able to do that automatically. Kanye quotes. Fetch Kanye data. So apparently Kent is Kanye data, which I think what it's doing here is it's also able to kind of parse the code that's already existing in the project, and it tries to use that in order to determine what it's going to send. So I think that's why we see this, because we're already using the can't see dots above. But let's see Kanye rest, if it still, nope, it still doesn't want to do it. So let me get rid of the other code first before we actually try to do this. Okay. Yeah, Kent Dodds is the Kanye of web development. How about that? I don't know that he would like that. Fetch Kanye by URL. I don't like that. Rest. Okay. How about fetches a quote from the Kanye.rest API? Let's see if that works, and displays it on the page. Okay. So it's not liking that. But let me see if I hit Control Enter. Let's see if it's actually going to. Yeah, okay. So it is working. It's just not the, I don't know why it's not the first solution. So we can see here that the first one in here is it's actually going to fetch that quote by the ID and get it. And it's even going to return us HTML. Now, I don't necessarily want that, but I am curious to see what that looks like. So let's accept that. And I'm going to do something hacky here. Don't do this in real life. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to render that inner HTML. Well, actually, this won't work because this is SCSS modules, right? Or CSS modules, rather. Well, let's just try it. So I'm going to use React state, use states, and I'm just going to set this as a string. No, that's not going to work. That's a React component. I don't know how that works with... I don't know how that works with being able to return that as a React component from that fetch request. I don't know. I think that is okay. I'm going to get rid of that one actually, and I'm going to just try that again. But maybe we try a different API. Let's try the Ron Swanson quote. Fetches a Ron Swanson quote and returns it. Sure. Fetch quote. Ron Swanson quote. So here we come. Beautiful. Oops. All right, so let's see if this actually works. I would imagine it will, but I need my function again. That's not what I want. I want an async function. There we go. Await fetch quotes. And let's console log that out. Wrong page. Oh, what did I do? Unexpected token. That shouldn't be right. Async function. Oh, because I need the, or wait. Am I doing something wrong here? What am I doing? Oh, right. I think that's it. Yeah. Wait, const. My mind is numb right now. I'm going to turn this into a regular async function because I understand more how that actually is supposed to look. Okay, so async function fetch quotes. Okay, so that should be good. Async. I don't know why my mind's not working. Let's see if that works. Nope, still not. I must have some kind of const fetch quote equals async. Okay, so I'll go back to that. Const fetch quote equals async. Yeah, okay, so that is right. So there must be something here with my immediately invoked function. No, what did I do wrong? Oh, how did this get in here? Like literally, how did this get in here? Oh, that's interesting. It tried to add a bunch of this Kanye rest stuff right there. So that was the issue the entire time. I was in a completely different React component. Oh boy. Okay, so that should work now. So whatever snippet that I added before, it added a new React component at the top of my home component or the page. Okay, so now this should work. And random not found. Okay, so it doesn't like the random. Is that the wrong API? Let's see if this cannot get. Well, that's a bummer. Ron Swanson quotes API. V2. So maybe it's just yeah, interesting. So maybe the snippet was just an old version of the API. But instead of API, it's okay. So let's just try and swap that out quick. So as you can see, if it is old examples of code, it might not necessarily work as you intend it to. But once we swap out that v2, it works perfectly. So how about let's try to create an actual React component. Constant quote equals, well, I like that before, quote, and let's see what that's going to show us. Well, I don't like what it's giving me. What in the world is all this state doing? And will it ever end? I don't like this. Okay, let's start fresh. Let's try to look at some of the other examples that are available. I'm going to get rid of my sidebar. Okay, so this is actually going to fetch a quote, which I don't need to do. It does have some, it's a quote, set quote text. I mean, I guess I can, yeah, there's no reason I can't use this because then I can just get rid of some of the other code, which is actually do the fetching. Okay, so we have our quote component and it's going to actually make that fetch for the fetch. So I'm going to remove it from here and let's actually add it inside the page. I'm going to get rid of all these and let's add quote. I don't think I had to add anything, right? So the interesting thing is that it has the ability to pass in a quote. How about get static props? Yeah, that's a good point too. So do you mean writing the get static props function? I'll try that. What is the white space extension that you're using? Are you talking about on the left here? The white space on the left? Yeah, so this is Rainbow, what is it called? Rainbow install. Rainbow indent rainbow. It's amazing. I love it because it makes it so much easier to be able to see like what you're actually doing with the indentation. And I don't know if you noticed, but I also have a different rainbow one called rainbow brackets, which is, if you notice these brackets, they're matching the colors. So as things actually get nested, and just as an example, how about my mind is blank. Get quote. But the point here is, see how it shows all the different brackets coordinated by color, which is another thing that just makes it so much easier. Rainbow brackets v2. I don't think I've seen the v2 one. Is it different than the one that I'm using? Rainbow brackets are good. Or yeah. Feel free to send the v2 of rainbow brackets. I'd be curious to see that. But yeah, so I want to see this quote component work. So I don't want to actually pass in a quote. And I feel like this is going to break if I don't pass in a quote. Because it's looking for quote and quote author. So I'm going to set this as an empty object just in case. Okay, so let's see what happens. Did I save it? Yeah, okay, so inside the grid, it's still just showing a dash, which is not what I want. Let's see if it's actually working. It's funny how these examples are really just turning into bracket pair colorizer too. Thanks, I'll open that up in a new tab so I can check that out later. But it's funny how these examples are kind of just turning into debug sessions just to see if these things actually work. But I suspect because we're using the Ron Swanson quote that this isn't actually the proper format. So I would imagine that's probably why. Yeah, okay. So we can see that we're actually getting the quote. And let's set the quote text as quote 0. And, you know, I think part of the issue is that it's trying to gather some of the context. And I think it's still learning. They're still trying to do a lot of the same they're still trying to do a lot of this with like the material that's already on GitHub, but it's still training. But if you notice, like it's trying to use that context of what I already have in there, and it's trying to piece together pre-existing things on GitHub, but it's not always 100% aligned. But it's trying, which is interesting. But it's also where you can try to use that synthesizer that will give you a bunch of different results. But let's see what happens here. And I'm going to set the author as Ron Swanson. Oh, well, that was nice. It pre-filled Ron Swanson for me, even though I hit escape and it did it again. So let's see what happens. Okay, so here we go. And it's working this time, where we get the lovely Ron Swanson providing us a quote. Awesome. Okay, so what's next? What do you want to see next? We were able to do with a little bit of work, we were able to do a React component. I think it was a pretty, get static props. That was the other one, right? All right, so let's try fetches quote and returns it as a static prop. I don't think that that's going to work, but yeah, because that's not page query. Let's see if it pulls up something. So I don't think it understands the get static props. And I was trying specifically to avoid using the function name get static props. But let's see what happens if I actually start writing export async function get static props. Is it going to show me anything? Okay, so the interesting thing here too is it's creating that function that's trying to request the quotes again. And I'm guessing that's again based off of the context at the top of the page, but that's not necessarily what we want. So I'm going to go to the next line and let's see what the synthesized results looks like for this. Yeah, so they're all doing something similar where they're trying to just make that quote. And that's obviously not obviously, but that's not going to work because that's not the actual API. So it's interesting though that it's still able to, that it's not able to determine that that's the name of the function. I would have thought that would have worked a little bit better than that, but that's interesting. Let's see if I keep typing out my props, if it does anything. No. Yeah. So now it's showing that it's a create next app, but that's not necessarily, I wonder what that example that's coming from. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that looks like it's just some random example. Oh, okay. So this is kind of what I was saying. So this isn't the exact example I was talking about, but I was talking about how you were able to find people's code and it kind of just dumps it out and it could be anybody's. Where here it's Vercel, so that makes sense because it's a Next.js application. But again, when I was trying it last night, it was some random person who was on GitHub and it had all of their user information for like their social media stuff. And, you know, adding that directly on the page doesn't necessarily make sense. So it was interesting to kind of see that happen. But anyways, so I say it doesn't work with get static props. That's not a good one. Okay, what's another example? I'm going to clear this out and let's see what you guys are saying inside the chat. Generate a binary tree from 1 to n. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know what a binary tree is. So if you help teach me what a binary tree is, one that has nodes numbered from 1 to specified n. I mean, let's try. I can just type that function name like that and see if it puts that together for me. Function create binary tree. Okay. Let's try. Tree equals create binary tree. And yeah, I gotta pass in n. So let's say 14. My birthday's on the 14th, so let's go with 14. And tree, I'm just going to JSON stringify that with null and 2, so it's nice and pretty printed. Do I have to put a pre around that in order to do that? I think so. Oops, not quoid. Whatever that means, code pre. And I'm going to put that inside and let's see what happens. Yeah, so I'm guessing that's a binary tree because it sounds like what you were saying. I should add, I can't reply myself. So each node has up to 2 children. So each node has up to 2 children where the left child has a lower value than parent and the right is greater than. My mind is melting right now. I don't really understand the example that you're trying to set, but I think it did a binary tree, right? That sounds like the original thing that you were saying. I wonder if there's a way to add to Git to not let Copilot train using my code. That's a great question. Somebody was posting in my Space Jelly Discord something where they saw that GitHub, I don't know if it was like in the terms of service or something. I'll try to find out where that was, but it was showing where it mentioned something along the lines that because your GitHub was private. I would have to imagine if it's private, it's not going to use it to train. I don't know, because that would be really bad, right? If it, yeah, open source code, because that would be really bad if it tries to suggest something that's like highly secret, right? So hopefully that's not the case. So no, it just output an array of integers. Binary tree is compromise of object references. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know some of the more computer sciencey code. Yo, what's up, Nico? Um, one that has nodes numbered one to. If you yeah, I don't know what about it. I can try to like give it one more example just to see if it spits it out right, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking at. So let's try it out again. Creates and returns a binary tree with the given depth. Create tree depth. Does this look like it's children? I don't think that that's gonna, unless that's going to be recursive. Yeah, it is recursive. So does this look like it's what you want? Why is this? Okay. No, yeah, I mean, I don't think somebody necessarily needs to go to school to learn that kind of thing. But I've just, as a self-taught web dev, it's not something that I've ever had to come across. So it's not something I've ever, took upon myself to hear about or learn. And a lot of these computer sciencey things I've never had to use in my day-to-day work. Greetings from South. Where in South America are you from? I'd love to hear that. But yeah, is this the tree that you're kind of talking about? Let's console log that out. And is my tree still there? Yeah, we got my tree. So is this more what you are looking for a binary tree? Yeah, that should be more like it. Okay. Okay, so it has the children, it goes down, and each of them has the depth of the defined. Okay, cool. Well, it was able to do it then. Yeah. So let's see. Me neither, but I did some research on BSTs because I needed it for a website I was making. Gotcha, math competition. That's cool. Yeah, I've just never had to. It's never come up. Most of the stuff that I do, it's interesting how there's like the math things. Like I've used a lot of the basic math that I've learned throughout my life and school, but nothing crazy. But I've never had to work with like libraries, or like I've never been that kind of developer. So I've never had to put those kind of things in practice, which is interesting. I never use linked list. Yeah, I still don't know exactly what a linked list is. Like I know these things are like simple concepts, but no one's ever explained them to me. All I've heard is jokes about linked lists and people having to learn them. So I've never had to figure out what it actually is. But I think Copilot building data structures invented in the 50s is the least impressive thing. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's just a dynamic array, so a JavaScript array. Okay, fair enough. So I guess I kind of do know what a linked list is then. Interesting. But all right, so what's another interesting example? Any other computer science terms that you want me to try out? Let's see here. Some of the cool things. Yo, what's up, Xander? Copilot is a lot of fun. It's super interesting. It was able to help me create a binary tree along with some other interesting stuff. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I tried to use the weather API, but that didn't pan out because apparently the API key that I generated didn't actually work. But it's all good. It's interesting. So I would be remiss if I was saying I told you before I was creating the Apple Tools test. I thought that was really cool. I would have to actually create a whole new project. Yo, what's up, Voltser? Hopefully I said that right. From India. Awesome. Yo, what's up, Guillermo? Does it work for CSS? That is a great question. let me think of how I could actually do that. So let's go to the styles, and how about, I don't know how I would do that as how I would do that as an example. How about adds a border to all elements. Let's see if that does anything. So that's not exactly what I wanted, right? But that's interesting. Okay, I must have broke something somewhere. What did I break? Oh, tree. Okay. Yeah, I got to get rid of that. Let's see here. Can Copilot rip out packages? Like I was using a package called use battery, which gets a device's battery life. When you say rip out packages, do you mean just reference them from the project? I don't know unless if you're importing it already into the file, like I was able to do that. Yeah, so far I was able to. I'm glad you're able to join. So far we've just kind of been playing around with Copilot and seeing what's actually possible. The first thing we started with was I pulled in some data from the Final Space API, and it was able to write stuff for me, where I was able to sort an array of objects. I was able to. It even wrote this slice, and yeah, it's just some simple things, but it was able to kind of do it all for me, and I didn't even have to kind of think about it for showing examples. But then we thought it'd be interesting to see what it looks like if we're actually going to a React project. So what things we did, we tried to use the Ron Swanson quote generator to pull down a quote. I tried to use the Open Weather API, but I got stuck with trying to use the actual API key. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but it was okay. It was still cool to see that it built out all of the different content for actually making that request, because I would imagine if the API key worked, it would have worked okay. So that was cool. Now we're just trying to see if we can generate some CSS, and it definitely didn't do that part properly, but I'm not going to dismiss it just from that one. And I'm having a hard time trying to think of how I would want to make it. Yes, Copilot comes as an extension, and what you do is inside of VS Code. I can even show it. Copilot. Here we go. So what you do, I love this icon, right? That's so cool. But what you do is you install this extension, and then it'll give you a little button that says sign into your account. And at that point, it'll be able to determine if your account actually has access to use Copilot, which if you haven't yet, make sure you go to copilot.github.com to sign up for the waitlist, because you never know if they'll pick you. I'm not really sure. But anyways, even if not, you'll at least get notifications for when it's publicly available. So it's been really cool, and it's cool to see it. Over 12,000 people. Well, those are installs, maybe so not. So yeah, ASCII art. That's interesting. Let me. I want to try another example or two of CSS, but yeah, let's try to do some ASCII art. That'd be a lot of fun. But how about makes the H1 blue? I don't know. Let's see if it does that. Color blue. So it does CSS. It's just, that one was a very simple example. How about something more complex? How about fades? Man, I can't write. So I don't know if this is bugging anybody else, but this kept confusing me because the color isn't super different between the comment and the tab. So I kept not being sure if I was backspacing the right thing. But let's try this again. So fades in the H1 element. H1, opacity 0, transition. I think it's working. Oh, so this is just on hover though. Okay, I think that's fair though. Like that's still kind of cool, right? Or I didn't put on page load, so let's see what happens if on page load. Let's see if that can do a little bit better. Fade in. So the only thing that's a bummer about that is that's not going to work, because that's the transition, right? What we would want, I would imagine, is an animation on that. But it was still cool to see that it was able to do that on hover, right? Like I wouldn't have expected it to be able to do that. So that's cool. But all right, so what else? When it comes to CSS, perhaps create some, so the transition fade, or trying a linear gradient to every odd div. That's interesting. The only issue is I don't have enough content on this one. So maybe let me go back to, you know what? I'm going to pull up my Next.js starter because there's obviously a lot more content on that. And I think it'd be a little bit more interesting to play with that kind of thing. Here, let me create a new tab. Next WordPress starter. And I will spin this up, which will take a second. Let's load that in the background. But what this will give us is a little bit more room to play with this kind of thing. So I'm going to go over to my globals styles again. All right. So this is SCSS. So I haven't actually seen if it'll work in SCSS yet, right? So this will be interesting for that part alone. I wonder if it would give me a SR only if I get rid of this. Screen reader text. SR only. I don't know if that was just because I had it defined there before, and that's not the same thing I had. But that's interesting. It's able to give one of the solutions. I wonder if I hit Control Enter, so it gives you a bunch of different options too, because like there's different ways to do it, right? So like if I wanted to do it, this was the one that it initially showed, but I think the clip with the rectangle and the 1 pixel, I think that's more of the right way to do it, the better way, if I understand correctly. But it's cool that I was able to do that, right? Just with being able to do that. So I think part of the cool thing with this is not only is it going to just be able to write everything for you, but things that I have to Google every time I want to write it. Like I don't know this screen reader text class by heart. So every time I want to use it, I have to Google for it. So instead I can just add this comment where if I wonder if I can just do .sr only. Oop, did that quote? Uh-oh. And it's just going to do it for me, which is really cool. So I no longer, I'll be able to do this instead of just trying to Google around for it, which is going to save me time, even if it's not doing like all the like little things for adding the tab complete. Oh yeah, so linear gradient. Let me pull back up my, so I'm going to target the article tag because I think, no, I guess I'm not using the article tag. I should be, shouldn't I? Where's that? Yeah. Anyways, that's beyond the point. So how about every other list element as a linear gradient? Let's just try to the body first because that was the one that it showed. I don't know if it, let's see here. The linear gradient that it was trying to add was very light, but it looks like it worked. It's very, very subtle. Let me change it to blue just so that I can see. Sorry. Yeah, so it worked. It was just very subtle with that very light gray. So that's interesting. But let me try that a little bit more dynamic. Add a linear gradient to every other list item. Let's see if that works. No, that's not going to work because I definitely don't have a class name of that. But I wonder if I don't even have those colors, do I? No. So that's another part of the example of where it pulls code that's not necessarily contextual to your project, which doesn't always work. But let's try this one. UL has to reload. Is it actually doing anything? Oh yeah, it is. It's totally doing it. That's awesome. I'm gonna, sorry, you probably can't see that. I'm going to make that blue violet so that you can actually see what that looks like. So it's even doing the ones inside there. That's really cool because it's grabbing the every other one from each of the starting points of where those list items actually begin. So that worked. That was really cool. All right, so let's see what the comments say. Centers container class. Let's see here. So for my center, let's see what it gives me. So that's not what I want. So when you say centers container class, can you or is that what you mean to actually type out as the code comment? Let's see. Centers container class. Oh, yo, what's up, Ryan? And thank you for subscribing with the Prime. Really appreciate that. So I think like this is kind of what some people would want, right? Like I think particularly the margin and the max width and maybe the padding, depending on what somebody's trying to do. I wonder if this is pulling, you know what? This might be pulling. No, it's not. Okay. I thought maybe it was pulling from the example I already had, which it's not. So yeah, that's interesting. Globals. All right, let's see what else is in here. Another CSS idea, display paragraph elements in a circle. Okay, let's try it. I don't know how many paragraphs. So how would this work? Display paragraph elements in a circle. I'll just try typing that out. Paragraphs. Oh, I can't type. In a circle. With a border. Let's add a border, right? Paragraph. So I don't think that's, well, it's actually, so I'm going to add this, but then I'm going to change blue. And let's try this white. And I'm going to just apply this to all paragraphs because of course, let's see. So it didn't do exactly what we want, but I think that's also because of the data. Let me see what that actually, that link that you have there looks like. I'll open it up here instead of my other machine. Hopefully it shows the, no, it's not showing the old chat. Darn it. Let me see if I can, 1 second here. Placing items in circles. Let me see if I can open that up here. Perfect. Okay. Mix in to place items on a circle. Did I miss you say on? Maybe I misread the original. Yo, what's up, bro card? Maybe I missed the original thing. So let's try this out. Maybe it'll grab that mix in. So mix in to place items on a circle. Mix in to place items on a circle. Circle item, position relative. I have a feeling this isn't what it's supposed to be. Circle item. I kind of doubt that that's what it's supposed to be, right? I'm doing good, having fun playing with a Copilot here. How about you? How are you doing? But yeah, I have a feeling that's not the right one. Yeah. What else could I describe that as? Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's not interesting. Okay, so I think maybe it can do stuff with CSS, but it's interesting because it doesn't have as much context as it is between the two, like your code base and the sources that it's pulling from. Yo, what's up, Sasi? So let's see. What was the other example that you mentioned? Oh, ASCII art. Let's see if it gives us some ASCII art. Now, let's go to index page. I'm going to go back to my other project because it's a little bit quicker for loading. All right, so how should I do this? Create ASCII art. Let's try that first and see. Oh, I'm doing those CSS comments still. Create ASCII art. So I don't think this is quite what we wanted, but let's see. Let's still see what happens. Let's put, what was the node that we need to pass in? Oh, string. So that's not actually, okay, so we'll actually need to pass it in as ASCII. Okay, so it gives us the nice example there. So let's see what that looks like. So that's definitely not what I would have expected. I don't know how that should work, but okay, let's try something else. Let's look at the synthesizing options to see if there's anything interesting. So here we go. This isn't super interesting, but at least it's Let's see, ASCII art animals, but it doesn't look like an animal. Here we go. We got a little bit of, I don't know what that is. Yeah, so I don't know if it's, maybe it's just because I'm not doing a great query, but I don't know. Is there something particularly like I should look for ASCII? Like it's, at least it's finding some stuff, but then it's giving me a whole bunch of like React code, which I don't necessarily want, right? I don't know. That's interesting. So maybe not. I don't know. Anybody have any other ideas as to what you want to see Copilot try to do? Let's see. It's 2:11 here. I just started around 1 p.m. Can try to go a little bit more. Maybe cat ASCII art. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Returns cat ASCII art. ASCII cat. Please, please, please. Is it just taking a long time to load? Yes. Except that doesn't look like a cat, right? But let's see what happens when I actually try to run it. So how am I going to do this? Is that going to be ASCII cat? Okay, let's see what happens. So that's not right. I think I need to probably, what is that coming in as? It's coming in as a string, right? Does that need to be a pre around it? Let's try that. That's not what I want. What did I do? I did something. Oh, oops. Did not mean to do that. How did I even do that? It's weird. So I guess I can kind of see it as a cat, right? Is it supposed to be a cat? Let's see, what does it say? Maybe cat, apart from SE. Is that a cat butt? It might be a cat butt. I don't know. I feel like this could be legs, right? Those could be legs. But is that a cat butt? Or are these the eyes? I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Or maybe it's upside down. Oh, wait. How do I, you know what? I can do that with CSS. Let's see if it transform, rotate 90 degrees. Is it 90 degrees or 180 degrees? 180 degrees. So I mean, then that would be the ears, but I still don't necessarily see a cat. Maybe it's just not aligning properly because of what it is. But is this still the face though? Is this supposed to be the face? I don't know. I can see like the eyes and maybe a little mouth. Let's try another. Let's see if there's any other ASCII cat examples. Oops. Let's see if it synthesizes anything interesting. So this is the peak of the stream, right? Trying to create ASCII cat art. Yeah, some of these are just terrible and not what we want at all. How is that supposed to be a cat? What does that say? Gon? G-O-N? I don't know. I don't think ASCII is really, am I even pronouncing that right? ASCII? I don't think that is really the strength of Google Copilot, at least at this point in time. I will need to send feedback to make sure that we can produce some more ASCII art, because I need a space jelly ASCII art, right? Yeah, a little bit of a bust. So how about one more example before we call that a day? Anything else interesting? Maybe is there another public API? Yo, what's up, Will? Thanks for joining. Anybody have any other interesting ideas on what we could do for trying to use some Copilot? I think I think overall, I think what I can find myself using this thing the most is for like utility functions that I'm going to write over and over. Not necessarily like day to day, like using this, at least at this point in time where it's at. And it's still, it's still early and it's still training and stuff, but I could see this being more useful for when I'm trying to write a function that I'm going to write in every single project that I'm using it in. Or as we saw today, like it could scaffold some of the code, some of the basic code, but it's not going to be perfect. And I think that's just generally how it is. And as time progresses, AI is going to keep getting better and better as it trains and progresses with technology. So it'll be interesting to see. Yes, good for boilerplating. because as we were able to see, we were able to create some basic components and even some basic functions. And with a little bit of tweaking, we were able to get it working. Oh, another one that I tried, this is another, again, it's like utility functions, but I was doing like format date, where if I set that up, it was able to create some nice things for me. And I tried to do things like generate a, so that's too much. I tried to do like returns a country, oops, I cannot type right now, returns a country name by ISO code. And like it was able to do, so the issue here, which is exactly what it was last night, the issue is it doesn't have the countries. And I was hoping that it would also import the countries so that I didn't have to do any of that. Now, of course, I would probably need that as a package, or even if it just dumped in a big array of all that. But it, of course, you know, it would work if I had the array to pass it in. And at that point, it would also require that it's also specifying this ISO code as the same. But it's still cool that I was able to generate this like kind of boilerplate code that I could manipulate to do what I need to based off of the data that I have. So ask it about the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. I would not mind trying it. I really hope it does what we think it will do. What is the answer to life? Is it gonna synthesize anything? Apparently it's, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? That's a lot of comments with that. I don't know if anybody, there was a Zeit API request, and apparently the Zeit APIs knows the answer to life. But let's try the exact, ask it about the answer. I'll write that exactly as is. The answer to the ultimate question. Well, it's already auto-completing that, which is nice to see. Yes, yes. I think that was the highlight of the episode or of this stream. It was successfully able to determine the ultimate question of life. Somewhat disappointed. Maybe you were disappointed in the other one, but I'm pretty happy with this. This is pretty fantastic. And I feel like we should call it there, right? You should try setting up unit tests at some point with it. Yes, I'm not sure if you saw my one tweet. So I work for a company called Applitools. I'm not sure. Maybe you've already seen it on my Twitter, but yeah, I set up a whole test using the Applitools API, which does visual testing. It was amazing that I was able to do that. But yeah, I think we were able to answer the ultimate question of life, and I think we can call it there. But yeah, thank you everybody who tuned in to kind of play with the Google Copilot again. I think I'm going to either try to cut this up into making a video, or maybe I'll make a separate video and put that up onto YouTube. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. Take care.